How's that, Rock?
No, get that out of
Hannah's wasn't far from that last time.
Yeah.
We interviewed from the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
that was the she was
She was cool.
Female Harlem Globetrotter.
first white girl though.
First white girl.
First white
She's
girl.
our Jackie Robinson, baby.
Damn, dude.
Hell yeah.
She sure is.
I stand by that claim.
I like
If you're listening, Hannah, thank you.
Yeah. Hannah's awesome.
Hannah was
Dude,
great.
being a Harlem Globetrotter is so cool, I think.
Jared's
It is
actually
cool.
going one-on-one basketball with her next week.
Yeah,
Oh,
dude.
you're getting whooped, dude.
Hey, I know. It's okay. We're gonna see if I can make a shot.
Well, don't let
yeah.
her get between your legs too often. That's like the classic,
Yeah, that's true.
getting owned.
I'll
We should
catch
move
on.
on
We'll see
from
how many.
this conversation.
I'm just gonna see if I can catch like what trick she's gonna do on me. Right?
Yeah,
So fool
dude.
me once. You know,
guys
shame
ever,
on
you
you.
ever see the you guys fans of The Professor?
No, I remember the professor.
Dude,
Yeah.
he's still doing
Is he
videos,
really?
bro. Yeah. I
Grayson
love it.
Boucher, bro.
Dude,
Yeah.
he's like clowning fools at like
There's-
pickup games.
and one
Really?
mixtape to our whole lives is the only white dude on there.
Yeah, like he's the
He's
guy who
great.
missed the league, you know, like it's all he talks about every interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember. It's too bad.
So welcome to the Nut Club. We've brought a guest back today. It's we brought back Nathan Carroll,
First return.
first return.
Congrats.
Thanks.
We've got a trophy for you after this.
Oh, really?
More like a plaque.
I'm
Yeah.
so excited actually.
It's edible.
That'd actually be awesome.
Giant gummy trophy.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on here today, Nate.
Yeah, man.
That's a nice shirt you got on there. Where'd you get that?
Thanks, dude. You guys got to get one of these, man. Oversized heavy tees are in, and Nutritori's making them. This is so sick.
But it's crazy how the trend changes so much. Like it was skin tight everything for
Yep.
so long, and now it's like everybody wants to wear baggy shit.
Yeah, actually, one of the cool things about fashion right now is that it's all of it.
Okay,
You
that's
just
true.
it's just how you wear it, right?
That makes sense.
Like dudes are in crop tops now, which is sick actually if it's done right.
Okay,
It can be really cool if
I
you
haven't,
do
I
it
haven't
right.
seen that.
Will we ever
Yeah.
see you in a crop top, Nate?
Probably this summer.
Oh.
But
I
it's a
look
little
forward to
different,
it.
you know. Like it's not cropped like under your nips. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You know, it's like it's just a short T-shirt.
I
It's
got
kinda
you.
like
It's like
comes
that
out.
90s linebacker.
Yeah,
exactly. I got you.
I was
You
going to say
got it,
football.
yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say football. You remember seeing those back in
Yep.
football movies.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's like that cut, but you know, like a graphic tee that you cut off and like the right jeans and you know
No, yeah.
that type of.
You remember how like when girls used to dress all kind of like that, with like crop tops and whatnot?
Yeah, you almost said the S word. I caught you. I heard.
No,
it.
no, I didn't say.
Skimpy. You mean skimpy?
That was slow. Yeah, a little slow.
Trying to help here.
Yeah. But you know how like victim blaming used to be popular too?
Uh-huh.
I wonder if it's gonna like turn around now if guys would get victim blamed. Like he deserved it. He just look what he was wearing. You know.
Exactly. Yeah. That's funny. We had a couple questions we were talking about.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about them. I can't remember the order.
Yeah, no, the first one I definitely remember, so I will fire off with it before I forget. Talking about, I'm not of MMA, like UFC, any of that sort of guy, but talking about just walking into a gym, what should I expect, good or bad? Just what would that look like?
Yeah. I think whenever we were talking about it, you were even emphasizing about like injuries and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
well, I just almost everyone I talk to
Yeah.
has some sort of like kind of horror story, and it's like some guy thought he was way better,
Mhm.
you know, like just rolled on accident, you know,
Mhm.
stuff happens like that. So
Yeah, I think generally it just depends on where you're going, and you can kind of research what gym you're going to go to and get a really good idea before you show up, so you don't end up going to the wrong spot. But
Yeah.
you know, you have gyms that are like fight gyms, and they have hobbyists that train there. But those are the type of gyms, if you go to a fight gym, okay, that you would get injured out of context.
Sure.
Context would be like the correct context would be preparing to fight, and then you get hurt, right? Because you're actually training like a professional. But out of context would be like you're a hobbyist and you get hurt by someone who is training to fight.
right.
That type of thing really mostly happens when you're going to a fight gym for MMA specifically.
Sure.
A lot of people that aren't super into the jujitsu scene don't realize that there are like fight gyms for
Right.
jujitsu, right? Like if you were to do like a wrestling club that is not for the school, but the entire purpose of that club is to compete year round in wrestling. They do that with jujitsu, with professional jujitsu athletes who get paid to do jujitsu and things like that. You go to a gym like that, your chances of getting hurt are probably higher than if you just go to your like local jujitsu gym.
Right.
And really, there aren't any gyms in Wichita that are competition gyms.
Right.
So anywhere you go in this city for jujitsu, you're probably going to be welcomed with an instructor who's interested in helping you fall in love with the sport.
Yeah.
There are a couple fight gyms for MMA in town.
Right.
I've never been there to train, so I don't want to speak at all towards the experience that you will have there. I've heard no terrible stories, but JMTK is Genjir Muay Thai Kickboxing is known as a fight gym.
Right.
316, which is David Rickles' location, in my knowledge, is considered to be like a fight gym. They have a lot of hobbyists that love to train at both places, but those gyms are what I would consider to be fight gyms. Not saying it's a bad idea to go.
Yeah.
I don't want that to come across that way.
Just kind of depends on what you're looking for.
What's the worst injury you've seen at a gym?
Man, I don't know. I mean, you can name it outside of, when it comes to like physically getting your body hurt. I mean, I've never seen anyone break their spine, but outside of that, everything. I mean, I've seen people's humerus bone snap in half.
Really?
Yeah.
From what? How that happened?
Kimuras every time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Kimuras every time. People don't want to tap. I've seen like legs be spiral fractured from heel hooks, like the tibula or tibia fibula, whichever one, however you say that. Dude, you're the best, man.
Shout out Max.
Thanks, Max.
Thanks, Max.
MVP.
Cheers. Yeah. The fibula tibula has snapped. I've seen that. Knee ligaments constantly.
Yeah.
Spinal injuries, but never like broken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Anyways,
crazy, dude.
yeah.
I just think armbar. Just somebody
This arm doesn't go straight all the way
really.
because of an armbar. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's like
That would be my biggest fear. Somebody likes doing that really quick, and I don't even have time to tap, and it's just like snap.
Yeah, that's real. And then your conversation about some guy who thinks he's better than he is, or some aggressive.
Yeah, dude.
I was kind of that guy for a long time.
That's fair.
I hurt a lot of people as a lower belt. I was a big. We talked a lot about. The last time I was on about like the need for validation through the sport to feel like okay. So that translated to training, and every round was like the world final. And I hurt a lot of people that didn't deserve to be hurt, that were just nice dudes. They were nice enough to put their body on the line training with me.
How many guys do you think you ended their jiu-jitsu experience?
I don't know about their whole experience, but there was one guy one time who came in who was kind of a it's funny, kind of callbacks to some of our other conversations about bodybuilder. Actually.
Yeah.
See?
He was.
The bodybuilders, they just ask for it.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, it's that look in their eye.
He looked me in the eye and said, "Let's get it on."
Yeah. Not every time. A lot of the time it's cool, especially now that I've been doing this a long time. I have no preconceived ideas. I just try to welcome everyone as they are. But the guy came in and he started beating up on a girl, actually.
Yeah, he deserved it.
Yeah, he was rolling with a girl who was a lot smaller than him, and she was tough as nails, didn't seem to care at all. But he was just being really rough, and even being told by the instructor, like, "Hey, chill." And he was still just being super rough. And at this point, I'm just looking for a reason to be an asshole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this was the perfect right to do that. So I just, I was so mean to him, just dogging him really hard. And then he never did jiu-jitsu again after that. But he trained at the gym and did boxing, and I talked to him, and he was a cool guy. But yeah, I wouldn't say I ended it. He was.
You may have though.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
Bodybuilders come in there and they expect the dumbest things because they're strong in certain ways.
They are strong.
There's just a natural rivalry. I can say it because I'm not in either camp.
Well, for sure,
you guys hate each other, and you never want to admit it.
Well,
it's so funny.
There's definitely a
watch
rivalry,
from
but
afar.
and bodybuilders are kind of the well, I'm a big guy, so nobody's gonna fuck with me, kind of a thing. And then you actually get into somebody that knows how to fight.
I know how to fight, so no one's gonna fuck with me.
Yeah. And so bodybuilders think that they have something above somebody else because they're bigger or stronger, and then the fighters actually have technique and the guts to do what they need to do.
Bro, it's like Bradley Martin is the most delusional guy, dude.
Yeah.
He keeps saying this about
Bro, he's 260 though.
Oh my God. It's painful because guys, I had already won double gold at the American Nationals, was ranked by the IBJJF rankings as the #1 ultra heavyweight purple belt in the world. Brown belt, already had won some, beat some good guys, was gaining success and getting good at this. And in a place where the sport, when it comes to rank, it's really not that much of a difference from purple to black if you're a higher level competitor. It's pretty darn close, right? At least that's what you think. And and that's generally true and can be true a lot. But the point nonetheless is at that time when I was kind of at my peak performance, I went and trained with a good friend of mine. His name's John Hansen. Shout out to John. He's the man. He's from Omaha, Nebraska. I don't know if he's from there, but that's where his gym is. And even at that stage in my career, going with someone that was that good was like mind boggling and depressing to just be completely controlled
That's what I was about
and
to say.
dominated by another human being after knowing how and being in shape and already doing it under high pressure situations and training as a professional, to have another guy just hold me down for 20 minutes and I can't do anything, to the point that I finally was like, John, you got to like help me. I don't know how.
You're not learning anything.
I'm
at
not,
this point.
and I'm like supposed to know. And
Yeah.
it's like so demoralizing. And so then you have someone who has no training. Who's like, I would just grab you. You can't do anything. It's like, you have
Yeah.
no idea what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyways. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, there's maybe a rivalry there.
I love it. I'm telling you, it's great to watch. From
Oh, for
afar.
sure.
What do you
Yeah.
think? What do you think the best way to get somebody interested in jiu-jitsu? Like, so there's like a new guy comes in. Are you in the camp of, take it easy on him, like work him through it, don't submit him, let him learn, or are you in the camp of, okay, like take it easy on him, have some fun with him, but like highlight him a couple times, so then they're like, oh, that was cool, I want to learn how to do that.
I actually don't know, man. That's an unfortunate thing. It's like it's part of my life and my career, and I'm not really sure. I think I would rather ask this to you guys, and the reason why is because like even since the very beginning, I came to jiu-jitsu for mental health reasons. Like I came to it because I needed it, and then after I started to feel okay, being successful as a competitor was something I needed. So there was never a question about how I felt or whether I was comfortable. It was always about go as hard as possible, do as much as possible, be as good as possible. And that's what drew me, and I think that there's something to be said for everything, but I'm not really sure, man. I mean, I don't think people want to get beat up,
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't.
There's always an aspirational goal.
Yeah.
Like whenever like bodybuilding, because I can speak to that one. It was looking at the guys that were jacked, Arnold and people like that, and the Mr. Olympias and stuff. And there was something about it that made me go, that's the way I want to be. And so I was like, I thought they were the men, they looked the best.
Right.
I would be something special if I was like that.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. And I think that has to be it. They have to see something in jiu-jitsu that goes, holy shit, if I could do that, I would be fucking cool.
Yeah, it's funny whenever people come to it for different reasons too, because like sometimes guys come to jiu-jitsu and they seem to have that good sense of self and like a strong personal identity. And some people I've noticed, man, they just do it because it's fun.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's like weird. It's like, what do you mean, bro? I
You're
don't
not
know.
driven by some weird deficiency in
Yeah,
yourself.
exactly.
I don't know what that's like, How could you be interested without
exactly,
it?
and exactly, and it throws me off, but that seems to be a really common thing, especially as people are growing more. I guess I don't know. Yeah.
See, I think it kind of depends on like who you kind of got in the room. Because there's guys in there, like the guys that are kind of more cocky and kind of come up there with like kind of more like, oh, I'm about to go in here and like, be that high school athlete that I was again here in this training room.
The glory.
Yeah, and then they just get lit up by some skinny kid.
Mhm.
Those guys are always the ones that come back.
Not always, but they're definitely going to never come back, or they're going to get good at it.
Yeah, they're either going to come. Yeah, it's going to be an all or nothing kind of situation.
Definitely, I agree.
Yeah, so like I've seen success there, like more kind of tame people and whatnot, like looking for like I don't know an outlet for, said mental health, kind of what they're dealing with. I guess kind of more a softer approach, kind of feeling welcome, somewhere safe. I guess would be.
Yeah, and back to just before I talk about that, I mean your comment about the guy getting beat. Sometimes I actually see this completely different response to like people being completely and totally delusional.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Like after they're beat,
they get beat up really bad. Like sometimes, I'll be honest, like one of my most enjoyable experiences is when a guy does come in and is vocal about how he's not going to get beat up and how he is going to beat everyone else
For
up,
sure. Yeah.
and that he wants to prove that and that he's okay with going hard, because then I'm like, yes,
See,
this is the moment I've been
not to
living
interrupt, but
for.
in my head that doesn't exist because I'm not an idiot. So maybe that's why I
Dude,
don't
there's so many
understand some of
idiots
these
though.
things.
There's a lot of idiots.
There's a
Really,
lot of
like I would
idiots.
never
Yeah.
come in and just be like, "Who wants it?"
Yeah.
Like it sounds like that's what you're explaining more or less.
Literally, yeah. They're like, I'm going to beat you. And then you also have guys who keep doing jujitsu who are also delusional and they struggle with it. And some of them, back to the mental health thing, like I think some people do jujitsu to medicate it. Like they have a problem with this grandeur of themselves and that they can't be beaten. And that if they do lose, it's always someone else's fault. And some people become successful still feeling and thinking like that.
Yeah.
Like they'll
Mm.
lose a match and they'll be like, it was the ref. And
It's almost like a chip on their shoulder, kind of. I think.
Yeah.
But like it's like the wrong kind of chip on their shoulder. It's like I mean, it works for them, but it seems like emotionally destructive almost.
Yeah, it definitely is. And they're like, blame it on how they were feeling or the camp or an injury, or they didn't get to wear their uniform, their gi, their rash guard because it didn't fit. It's cold in here. The mats are slippery. Like they come up with all sorts of excuses.
Yeah.
And then it goes even into a more intense way with like, we've had guys come in my experience at other gyms have talked about it, and they're crazy and then they get beat up and then they go in the parking lot and you can hear them on the phone talking about like telling their friends that they beat everybody up, like that, just like,
Yeah.
it's just wild.
That's crazy.
People can be, though, to me, the people that think like that that's scary to me. Because that's just like this inability to see and feel reality. And then they probably think that way from like a
In their relationships, everything. Yeah.
There's a lot of people that lie to themselves and they believe it. It's really crazy. Like
Well,
all
yeah.
evidence points to the contrary, but then they've lied to other people enough that
Bullshit
that
takes other
becomes
people's participation.
yeah, and then
Truth doesn't.
they become like this story of what did not happen in a completely wrong way. They have just believed it and they stick to it. That's their belief.
Man,
Whether it protects them or whatever it is, but it happens a lot.
to get real, man, I've definitely done that shit before too.
Yeah.
Yeah, about things that seem like they don't matter, but just like the way you feel about something, that's a dangerous game to play. You start lying to yourself and life gets tough quick,
Yeah.
Like I feel like if you think about all the like worst things you've been through, I feel like I can always trace it back, if it wasn't some freak accident, to somewhere along the way I was like not honest with myself about something and invested in the wrong thing.
Very dangerous.
And
thing.
people just seem to live, in that way. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway,
And it's funny because you have a lot of these like protections from these things implanted in like books and like old knowledge and whatnot, and you see how almost anything older, like previous knowledge, is now discounted as not correct. There's a better way, more scientific way, or
Boomer
whatever.
knowledge.
Yeah. And then you come to find out years later that this is not as fulfilling as like, what thousands and thousands of years of people saying is fulfilling, regardless of technological advances or anything like that.
sure.
And so I feel like lying to yourself is becoming more of a like societal, like overall thing as a society, right? Especially if America. Like
Yeah.
I heard the president of Mexico say something very interesting the other day. He was getting interviewed about the the tracers that are or pre-tracers that are used to ship through Mexico from China to make fentanyl and whatnot. And he kind of responds like, my people aren't the one consuming this. Where's the drug addiction in Mexico? Where's this in Mexico? The only reason this is here is to produce this for your people who are consuming all this. Like, why don't we take a look at America? Why don't we take a look at the mental health, the status of America, like what Americans find important in life and whatnot. And so I think we as a country are definitely lying to ourselves as a whole on like what's important, what's fulfilling, and we're gonna hit a point of where we have to, head on collision with reality almost.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you could definitely say that about a good portion. And then I think there's a whole nother group of people. I don't know, man. I think that delusional people who are incapable of seeing and perceiving reality, or at least, when we talk about lying to yourself, speaking their own personal truth.
Yeah,
Because even if
that's become a thing, like your truth. What's your truth?
Well, but that's a real thing though, because if you're just regurgitating information that is supposed to be a fact that you don't believe, you're lying to yourself.
True.
So it gets complicated. You have to speak your truth, even if your truth is wrong for a time. You have to live in that way in order to change. Does that make sense? Like I can't just you tell me something that's true, but I don't believe you. I don't believe that you're right, but it is true. It's a fact, and the world knows it's a fact,
Sure.
but I don't believe that. If I just start saying that I do, I am lying to myself. And that's also a sketchy thing. It's like it's a balancing act, I think that that to me is more important than just believing the facts. Is really understanding like what do you feel and how do you feel about it and processing those feelings, because if you don't, then you're just going to end up being in a place that you don't actually believe in. Like you're living a life that's not real. You're not living your own, what you believe is right and doing the things you believe in. So then you're unsure of yourself. You're insecure in your relationships. You need validation from the people around you because you don't know that this is the right choice. So I agree, right, that there are some crazy things going on with humans and what we value, but there also has to be some honesty about the fact that living that way for a time may be needed for a lot of us.
Yeah, that's fair. You feel like there's a lot of lessons that come out of that?
Yeah, lessons or just like, that is living life. Like it can get so existential that you're only doing the things you think you're supposed to do instead of just doing like living the moment you're in and being in that moment as yourself completely. Until you start doing that, I don't think you can actually get better. You're just trying things that other people are telling you, but you're not really growing. You're not growing yourself because you're just so much like, well, this guy said that, and that person said this, and this is the fact, and it's like, well, sit with yourself. I think that's really what it comes down to me, in my opinion.
I think you're trying to cover up this lack of confidence in whatever the truth is, and you're trying to tell yourself that it is true when deep down there's doubts. And there's things that you won't admit even to yourself. Like, no, I don't. This is the way it is. If you wanted to go into anything like trusting God or something like that.
Correct.
And no, everything works out. God's in control. But if you don't really believe it, like if you don't have the deep, like seated confidence, there's a doubt behind it somewhere.
Mhm.
If you ignore the doubt, you're in a worse spot.
Yeah. And then I think what Brock's talking about is like this point where, he's like kind of at this point with his original statement. It's like, at what point do your beliefs change based on the obvious happenings around you?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And you go from like living your truth to realizing what's real. And I don't know. That's a thing that I think I'm an infant when it comes to these types of things. I'm very new to even thinking like this myself.
Yeah. I think that, if there's knowledge throughout the ages, religious knowledge or philosophers or philosophical knowledge or something like that is true in some degree, and you try to implement that in your life, but you don't counteract that. I don't actually feel deep down that this is true for me, or I don't trust this in the way that I'm confident that it's really that way. Instead, we're trying to convince ourselves of that. And then you are covering up the deeper part that you need to sit with is kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I think that's where some of the like lashing out and immoral behavior comes from, is this like conflict of who you truly are.
Yeah.
I think the truth doesn't require, and you don't have to like believe anything with it, and bullshit does. And that's the crossroads that a lot of people come to.
Yeah. And that's
Truth doesn't require other people's participation. It's just true.
I agree. But it does in certain context. I'm not sure where that separation is or how to verbalize that, but there are some things that are just true that people choose not to believe, and nothing bad ever happens to them.
Yeah.
True.
Isn't that
Totally fair
interesting?
point,
So
yeah.
you're right. Like truth doesn't need your belief, but you can just not. Some things you can just choose not to believe are real, I guess.
Totally.
I don't know.
You don't have
It's
to
weird.
believe the earth is round.
You don't. That's true.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, it
really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You're right. That's
real.
very true.
No.
I don't know why people
I think
get so angry.
objective truth that's certifiably true is one way, but when somebody says that seeking pleasure will never make you happy,
Sure.
You know, that's a different one. And I think
Philosophy,
philosophy,
principles,
yeah. Like
values.
seeking pleasure is not going to actually give you. Everybody thinks if I set my life up to be all of these ways where I never have discomfort and I always have what I want and I achieve all my goals and I get everything and it's, you know, life is just pleasure all the time, then I'll be satisfied. And I think it's you can see it in other people that it's not true. For the rest of us, we could lie and say, well, I just don't have enough money yet. Or, you know, if I could get out of this job or if I could do that, then, you know, then I would probably be happy. But then you go look at the celebrities that have had literally everything they've ever dreamed of. And some of them are killing
Yeah, I
themselves.
say it all the time, man. Only rich people kill themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, because everybody else has the still the belief that they need to get something,
Yeah, that there's
those-
something better coming.
that there's something better coming. And so you could convince yourself that, okay, you know, philosophically, this is what they've said throughout the ages, you know, evidence, you know, objectively, this is true, and try to convince yourself of that. But if you don't counteract this need for, you know, money or pleasure or whatever it is, and actually sit with that, like this is the driving force of my life, and I'm trying to cover it up with a belief, well, then I think that you're just lying to yourself at a certain point, right?
It's interesting that you say that because, you know, talking about being honest with yourself, I think that I believe that that is true.
Yeah.
Logically, but I still can't help but believe that if I just get more stuff, I'll be happy.
100%.
I can't help it.
100%.
Hey, you never seen a sad person on a wave runner, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
That's fair, right? That's fair.
Naheem Hines is sad.
And that's you know, that is the objective truth that you could see in nature.
Yes.
But you have to then counteract that and say, you know, I think this is true, but you know, deep down, I still feel like I want those things.
yeah, and that's back to what we're talking about. The truth doesn't need you to believe it, but for you to be happy, you have to believe it.
Yeah.
So
So
it's like-
I think
yeah.
belief is probably an experience. I think you have to experience this. You know, bodybuilding wasn't going to make me happy. I made it there to wherever I wanted to go, and boom, it just fell away. And I was no longer interested in bodybuilding. It was not the thing. And then it could move. Then it's business or it's money or it could be your relationships or it could be anything like that.
Yeah.
And until you either experience it or somehow go deep enough, you know, into, you know, counteracting or not counteracting, but encountering, you know, whatever that belief is inside yourself, you probably keep holding on to it and, you know, just have a surface level belief, a surface level experience.
Yeah, for sure. And then and it's funny because, you know, you could just go in circles with this whole topic
For sure.
because then you have the guys like we were talking about before. They come in, they get dominated, they have the experience, and they still choose to just not.
100%.
Do you think that humans are capable of learning without having to learn the hard way or experiencing it? Because, you know, we're taught all these things as kids and whatnot, and we ignore a lot of it. And we see the obvious things and we're like, okay, that doesn't apply to me. That won't happen to me. Do you think we have to have suffering to get that lesson out of it? Or do you think we're able, like there's a way to get the lesson and the truth out of it without the suffering?
I think if I were to speak for the human race, I would just be wasting anybody's listeners' time because I have no idea. But I can speak for myself and say that it's really hard for me to learn without that. I learn based on fear or pain. I'm afraid something bad will happen, or ow, that hurts, don't do that again.
Mhm.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's pretty much me, you know? So I can speak for myself, but I don't know about other people, man. My wife, she's so intelligent and she's the sort of person that I envy her in this way. And she can just like see that a thing is harmful and just be like, I don't need that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I kind of want to try that, you know, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though it looks like it's not good for you, I still feel, you know,
I
and
think you're right.
it's interesting. So everybody's different, I
For
guess,
sure.
you know, I don't know.
But
But
I
you
think
guys-
there's different motivations, and I think everybody's got a different type of deficiency in their life.
yeah,
That they're seeking something to fill the void that they have inside themselves, and that void can be based off of a personality trait.
Mhm.
You know, that, you know, I'm not good enough could be the story that I have, where somebody else could have a story I'm not loved.
yeah, for sure. Got
And
it.
so they
Fair enough.
seek love where I seek success.
Validation.
Validation.
But both validation, but different types.
Different types.
Yeah. Yeah.
So somebody else could be perfectly happy being a stay-at-home mom and
Mhm.
feel very fulfilled in that, where somebody else that's another woman
has to be a CEO.
has to be a CEO.
Yeah. fair
And
enough.
that's the same situation. They both could see through it, but they got to experience different things.
So then what do you guys do? You guys have the ability? I know, I'm just
You're just smiling for the
yeah,
camera.
yeah, I was- do you guys have the ability to just be?
No.
Do you guys?
I think so.
You seem
I
like
think-
you have that.
I think
Yeah.
that I've figured out part of it.
Like,
But I'll make this as quick as possible. I don't think that I've achieved anything. I think to stop thinking about something, you just have to exist. And there's so many people that you're just constantly thinking about what you've already done or what you need to do. And to be truly present, I think is one of the hardest things in the world to do.
yes.
It is, bro.
But letting the thoughts go out is my problem that I've figured out over the last couple of years. I don't keep them. I keep them in. Like if I used to do. I think I've gotten better, but I don't think I've achieved it by any means. But I think I've gotten better. And
Okay.
thank you, because I'll take it as a huge compliment, honestly.
Yeah, that's so cool, man.
So can you redefine that a little bit?
Yeah.
Just for like, if listeners that didn't completely grasp that.
Yep. So like what he said is pretty good. Like, we live 5 minutes to 5 years in the future and 5 minutes to X amount of years in the past all the time. So we're thinking about, where am I going after this? What am I doing next? When am I going to eat? When am I going to lift? When am I going to train? When am I going to be with my family? When am I going to have a romantic encounter with my spouse or whoever? When am I, what's next?
Mhm.
And then when things aren't going well, we're reviewing. Man, if I wouldn't have done that, what would have happened? If I would have done this, and we say that that's always us getting better. I agree. But when does it stop? And when do we just start living life and being human beings? Where you're there present in this moment right now, here, living my life, not having to make myself full of anxiety and stress about where I'm going and what I'm going to do next. Because the truth is it really just doesn't matter. And where I've been, because that doesn't matter even more. And of course it does matter, but it doesn't, right? Like if you're trying to make some new decision, you want to be able to research the decisions you've made and not make the same mistake again. Of course, whenever you want to achieve a goal, of course you have to think about the future. But I think that when I say, can you just be, I don't think you do it all the time. I just think that there's a moment in time throughout your day or in your time, the skill, the ability to sit down and be like, okay, this is my moment, my time to just be here right now and not be spinning my wheels about the future or the past, but just existing in this moment and being present in the moment.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that's so insanely difficult for me. And it's happened for me a handful of times and it's an amazing feeling. And it feels like I'm a human being. It doesn't feel like I'm a product.
It's not I think for me, what I realized was just a defense mechanism, because I was always trying to make sure that I like either had something to look forward to, or if I was like, I would be like, go over stuff that I messed up, or like a conversation about, why did I do that? All right, I got to figure out how to not do that.
Yes.
That's going to help in the future. I'm going to make myself better by not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized I was actually talking to one of these two, and I didn't hear a word that they were saying.
Of course. Oh,
and I remember, obviously, I think it was Brock, so it wasn't that important. But
That's fair. That's fair.
No, but seriously, I remember thinking, like, bro, like that's it. Like that's what I like to do. I think that's what I'm good at, is like conversing and being with people in that present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that seems like something I can naturally do. So to me, I don't know. I feel like it's just something that I know everyone can do it. It's just that I feel like, to make it really literal, you stay in the back right of your head, your amygdala, all day, the fear part of your brain.
Yeah.
It's like the protection part, especially as a dude, like where you're going to eat, what you're going to do, how you're going to protect your wife, how your kids are going to get better,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And it's fine, dude. It's really good for staying alive. But it's 2024. So a lot of stuff, if you can kind of operate out of your prefrontal cortex and like be less worried, I think that's kind of the
Is it worried or reactional?
It's free flowing state. It's just fine.
I got you.
I think the best example I can give. Well, first off, if you were to say, stop thinking, you can't do it. I mean, your brain's just going to keep running. So it's an automatic.
It is
process.
possible.
It is possible with help, with chemical help.
Chemical help doesn't shut off the brain.
I don't know.
You may
letting
activate.
the thought go is the part.
The thought has to go and not stick around. For
The
sure.
explanation that like high level meditating, monks and whatever use at the starting phases is that you stop being in the traffic. You think of your thoughts as cars going on a road.
Yeah.
You stop being in the traffic, you sit on the side of the road and you watch the thoughts go by.
The witness position.
Right. But then there are some people that really talk and emphasize the fact that there is a place you can be where there aren't any. Like you're not perceiving them. I'm sure your brain is still working, but you're no longer perceiving your
You
thoughts.
get to you try to get to a point where your brain is literally almost empty.
Yes.
Mhm.
People swear that it's possible.
Yeah.
I've never had it happen.
Yeah, there's been. I mean, it's kind of like you see it in every religion.
Yeah,
to be
isn't it
fair.
like meditation and
It's-
like fasting
it's
in religion and whatnot?
contemplation.
It's meditation, contemplation. I mean, ultimately, the peace of God that passes understanding. That's the same thing. You're
Yes.
talking about a peace that comes over you that you don't worry. There's a confidence there, and that the thoughts would still be there. I imagine they don't go away completely, but the attraction of the thought, like if you
The
meditate,
thoughts or the thinking of the thoughts is what changes.
yes, you witness them, you see them, and
Thoughts
you're
are
no
going to
longer
come in no
attracted to
matter
them.
what. It's the hanging on to them or sticking around.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Do you feel this peace that passes all understanding with your new religious
His newfound
your
belief in
newfound
God.
belief in God?
I don't know. It's helped more with anxiety a little bit and whatnot, and I don't know. I wouldn't say it's helped me become a better person because I've always been morally just, I guess, because you can interpret it as um, two ways. So atheist Brock would say atheist Brock would say, okay, obviously there's inherently good thoughts, and we know what inherently good is because we have a conscience. It doesn't feel good to do bad things. These ideas that are in the Bible that are like godly ideas were manifested by humans on what they felt like was good and successful. So it would make sense from that perspective. Now, more spiritual Brock looks at it as like, you know, I guess my definition of God has changed and like opened up more. So people like to say is like it's like God speaking to you, but I'd say it's more so like I'd explain like this. You say that it says that God created people within their image or within His image. So and God is inherently good. So people are inherently good. They just have corruptions or things that corrupt them or that come by. So um, I don't know. I guess it's like kind of more flowing through it, understanding things are going to be okay. Um, there's not so much pressure on me, I guess, and that's like the big release of religion. But it's not
Yeah.
like, but I always atheist Barack always looked as that as a cop out. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like a weak person would not want to have to bear the brunt or the weight of a life.
Mm.
That's just like. But now I kind of understand what they're saying more, and I don't know. I'm having a hard time identifying like specific religion. I enjoy reading the
Mm.
Bible. I enjoy reading the Quran. I
Mhm.
enjoy reading the Torah. I enjoy reading like I'm trying to get more into like Hindu and Buddhist texts and like 'cause I still feel like there's God within there, and we just perceive it all differently. So I wouldn't mush it down into a certain religion. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at now. But it's been very interesting. I want to like where's your state at it now? Because I know you have a history with it and whatnot. So I come from the opposite perspective of never really having a religious past and then having trauma and whatnot happen. Um, and then kind of that's the reason I strayed away from it. And you were more dove into it as a child, so I don't know where that carries it from that point forward.
Yeah.
Can I jump
Yeah,
back
please,
real
yeah.
before
Yeah.
we go here? The being that you're talking about, can you
Mhm.
just be that state? I have an example
Oh, I want to hear it.
because I think it's what I would consider the flow state. You've ever heard of the flow state?
Yes.
Where time passes and you're not aware of time and you're
Yes.
just completely, enveloped in what you're doing.
Right.
For the most part, you're not worried about getting something. You're not worried about changing something.
Right.
You're not worried about all these things. And time, it's like when you were a kid and you were playing,
Yeah.
Yes.
and all of a sudden you forgot yourself
Yes.
and you forgot what you were doing, but you were just enjoying the moments.
Yes.
And I think that's the best way I would go back to that being.
Beautiful.
Can you do that? No, I've experienced it in my
Yeah.
life. Can I do it on command? Of course not.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I
I
think that's
agree.
probably the best way that I could, maybe come up with my instance of that is the flow state. They've called it the flow. Like sometimes you're working on something that is challenging and you enjoy,
Yes.
and all of a sudden you just forgot yourself and all the worries you had about yourself, and you are completely enveloped in what you're doing.
That's
Yeah.
jujitsu for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely find myself there with jujitsu quite a lot, even now after all these years, which is one of the reasons why I love it so much and will never
That's
stop.
a very common theme when you're doing things you highly enjoy or very like memorable to you. Like
Mhm.
when you got married, you probably don't remember a lot of it as much.
No.
Yeah. And so when you're like the best fight you ever had, you remember as much because you were the most present you've ever been.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that what I'm really talking about is trying to achieve that with no stimulus.
Yeah, with
Which
no
is-
fight.
Yeah,
I hear you.
no fight, no thing, And I think religion, the goal a lot of the time is that.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, bro?
I was just gonna say, no, go ahead. Sorry,
Yeah.
I had a thought.
No, it's cool. Can I answer his
absolutely.
question?
Go ahead.
First of all, good for you, man. That's cool. I'm happy for you. I think, I went through a real big hate phase for religion.
I did too after my mom died. Whatnot. Like,
Yeah.
I think
God
that's
did this to me.
a natural thing for
For
a lot
sure.
of people is to,
For sure.
especially if you were in it to some degree.
I actually should say I went through a hate phase for God, and I still despise religion.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah, I think
think-
you can separate the two.
Yes. Oh, you must. My opinion, of course, we're not talking facts, talking my
Yeah.
opinion. You must.
I'm still uncomfortable with organized religion.
Yeah. For
Like
sure.
I've just now became comfortable with the idea of a God. Like
Yeah.
now
I
there's a
don't.
whole nother jump going into organized religion.
Well, I don't want to judge someone who does
Uh-huh.
because I think that there is a place that people can find home there that is really genuinely helpful for them. Sort of like our conversation earlier about whether it's objectively true or not doesn't matter. It's what you believe and what works for you. And there's so many ways to be a human, right? Like church can be really great for people. Temple can be really great for people. The mosque or whatever you do, whatever convent. I mean, everything. It can be good for some people. I just think that based on history, it's just very, very clear that at some point, every religion has turned in a way to control people.
Absolutely.
Every single one, even Eastern religions. I'm reading a book about Buddhism right now, and there is even an extreme version of a religion that is known widely for having little to no control over the followers who are on the path.
Mm-hmm.
In that religious belief, there still is this extreme version of it that has, puts control on people in their life. So when it comes to that, it's tough. In my opinion, and I would definitely don't have enough time for me to talk about all the shit that happened in my life when it comes to religion. But the short version is I was born traveling in a travel trailer all across the country as my father was a traveling minister. So he got paid to preach for churches and put on revivals and have big, large services and bring more people to the church. That's like his job.
Okay.
And we did that until I was about 9. And we settled down in northern Idaho and we knew no one there. We knew nobody. And we started a church. 13 years later, the church had 500 members, which was, that's a large church from the ground up. No organizational support. It was a fully independent church for probably 8 of those 13 years. But we organized with the United Pentecostal Church International. We were apostolic Pentecostals, which means you believe in one God, baptism in Jesus' name by immersion, and a requirement to speak in tongues. And if you don't do those things, you go to hell.
Okay.
The other beliefs have a lot to do with the way you live your life. Up until I was about 9, we didn't have internet. My mom wasn't allowed to have makeup, wear pants, cut her hair. She wasn't allowed to wear short sleeves. My father had to wear long pants. He couldn't have a beard, couldn't have long hair, couldn't dye your hair. No cosmetic help whatsoever. No jewelry, no wedding rings, no movies. Absolutely no exposure to the outside world. What you would call a cult.
Yeah.
Right? And then as my father kind of got away from that, he started to realize some of those things were crazy. And he started allowing little things over time, like movies, then internet, then like, okay, why are we all not wearing normal people clothes? Like we just want to believe in God and be very spiritual. And the religious, spiritual practices remained, but a lot of the dress and stuff changed, right? People were dressing pretty much normal at a certain point.
Yeah.
But there were still a lot of restrictions for me because I was in ministry. And then I, at the height of my ministry was playing, 6 different instruments on the platform, depending on the service, traveling to preach as a teen. And then my last sermon was in front of like 2,500 people,
Really?
As a 19-year-old. So the involvement was extreme. My wife and I, after my dad, some things happened with my dad in the church I won't get into, but the church split and he left. I stayed, tried to hold together what we could. me and my wife ended up going to multiple different churches and being on staff working for them until ultimately starting to deconstruct Christianity in this way. And it just first started with me studying the Bible itself and realizing that just the Bible alone doesn't teach these things. Right?
I was going to say that. I was waiting for
that's where it started for me, was just understanding the Bible alone taught these things, but not as requirement for salvation.
Yeah, they take a little thing as mentioned once.
Yes.
And that is the literal truth you have to stick to.
Correct. And then years of kind of deconstructing that, realizing that the Bible itself is not true. And it can't, and this is just my opinion, and based off what I've seen in history and in the retranslations of the Bible over and over and over again, it can't be the living word of God anymore because it's been changed so many times.
Okay.
The Council of Nicaea planted many passages and removed many passages to tailor the Bible that we have now to be directly related to controlling poor people.
Okay.
Constantine really had a big part in this giant council, changing multiple portions of the Bible to say different things, to change a lot of the meanings. Whether or not the Bible was the living word of God or not, I don't know whether that's true or not. What I can say about religion is that I have had personally some very, very, very spiritual experiences that I think are undeniable, that there's got to be some kind of God out there. But I just don't think that anybody knows his name, and anybody knows whether it's a man, a woman, a thing, an it, a they, many, an energy, if it's the universe. And I think people trying to say that they do is my first sign immediately that they don't know what they're talking about and they've been indoctrinated. I believe that all forms of religion have some sort of pathway to spiritual connection with God, whoever, whatever God is. All religions have some path that you can use to get connected with God. And I think that existence of some sort of higher power is nearly undeniable at this point. But I just think what's interesting to me is that when people decide to have faith again, like Brock's talking about, it's default Christianity. Like he used a scripture to explain to me why he believes in God.
Sure.
But the Bible, in my opinion, can't be trusted.
No, I agree. And that's why I use it very minimally. I like the stories of it, or like things that you can take in and that feels right. Correct?
Sure.
And that's why I was like, I don't like defaulting to just the Bible. I like going to across the different Abrahamic religions, and like checking out Eastern religion, because like I said, I feel like there's truths in kind of like what you said in all of it. And yeah, I agree with all the things that you just said. There's scriptures that have been lost and recently found. There's all sorts of things.
Like for example, the Pentateuch is a part of the Bible that's been removed, and we don't even know why. Like, why is the book of Enoch not in the Bible?
Exactly.
Enoch's considered to be like the most spiritual. He was the only person in the Bible that we know of.
It's in Eastern Orthodox, right?
Yeah.
Eastern Orthodox has those.
And it's like he was
Catholic Bible, so.
Yep. The Bible says that he never had to die. He was just literally transported into heaven. Like he was the most spiritual man that we know, most connected to God.
Enoch?
Okay. Yeah. And there's no text that's there for him. And then you have
interesting.
You have a whole group of people that believe the Book of Mormon, and the Book of Mormon has the Bible attached to it, which has a verse in it that says, if anyone was to add or take away from this which I have spoken, consider it an abomination. And then they have a whole fucking book on the backside of the same Bible that says that. Yeah. And then there's millions of people that believe that. And it's like, that's what I'm talking about.
Don't get John started on the Mormons.
So the way that I look at it is that God, like you said, nobody knows, right? Nobody knows man, woman, energy, being, whatever it is. And the term I've always heard used is ineffable, ungraspable. That the human mind cannot understand God beyond comprehension, beyond understanding.
For sure.
So the language used has to be not directly, literally true, but a spiritual language leading you to the truth, but not that this is literally, God is a man that has a being that made you look like him as a person, but could be that God is the essence of soul energy, and you are also the essence of soul energy made in his image or in his likeness.
Sure.
And you are deep down, not this body, you are this soul, this energy, whatever you want to call it. A being. Yeah, you have something. You exist, and you exist.
Consciousness.
Whatever
that is. Whatever the hell that is.
I think it's hard to grasp in something like the Bible or in any of these other texts, because I've read quite a few different things in Eastern religions. I haven't read as much in Islam or anything like that. And, I grew up Christian, reading the Bible, being told the stories, that these were literally true stories.
Yes.
And I'm not 100% sure either way at this point in
Right.
time, to be honest.
Right.
But I think that in those Eastern religions, I grasped what they also say in some of the Bible, and I grasped that it's not the literal text; it's what's behind it, what's
Right.
past the text,
Yes.
what's that kind of thing, which is ultimately what brought me back to God.
Yeah.
Was this left because the story of Christianity didn't sit right with me. It was kind of a very strange story of here's these let's put them in a garden, let's put this tree in the middle, don't touch the tree, but
Yeah.
like we know human nature was going to be curious, and
I mean,
never
the Bible starts by telling you, we set the rules, you break them, you go to hell.
yeah.
It
And then
starts telling you
and
that.
then even Jesus comes to earth and forgives sins. If you
Yep.
read, he's your sins are forgiven, stand up and walk.
Yes.
But then the premise is that he died for your sins to be forgiven, which is an interesting thing because he's already claimed individual sins are forgiven based on their belief, based on their faith. By your faith, your sins are forgiven. By your faith, you are healed. And then we use this blood covenant, which is talked about in the Bible for
Mhm.
sure. And it's confusing to me. And I think that's what drew me away at a certain point. And as I come back to it now, it's seeing something beyond what the story is.
Yes.
Finding the depth beyond the basic story of, well, if you believe in God, you say Jesus is God, and you believe in him, well, you're going to heaven eventually. And I'm like, that's kind of what it says. It does say that.
Yep.
But there's more depth to it. The kingdom of heaven is within your midst. The kingdom of heaven is here. That kind of thing is a different kind of interpretation from those things. And so it's something beyond the surface, and I don't
I
think the
agree.
surface could never explain it because it is ineffable. It's
I
a
agree.
direct experience.
Sure.
It is, and they do talk about a relationship with Jesus.
Yes.
And if you look in some of the other Hindu texts, there's Ishwara, who is a personal god. In the Hindu text, you have an unmanifest God that is the Godhead. In Christianity is the source of all existence, the source of consciousness, and that's generally what they talk about. Is in Buddhism, it's a void, and things like that. But in one of the Hindu beliefs, there is Ishwara, who's a personal God who you can pray to and you can ask for help, and it's grace and love and personal connection and guidance. And even in the Hindu text, there is the Sadguru, the inner guru, that you can turn to the inner guru, almost like Holy Spirit, and you can turn for guidance to this. And the connection to that inner spirit is actually the guidance to, a state of enlightenment or to heaven or whatever they're talking about. And so I see similarities between these, but they're not surface level similarities, right? They're very in-depth similarities. It's hard to get past, but it is what brought me back to essentially believing, in a God and having some sort of direct experience. If Ishwara and Jesus were just different names for the same experience of a personal God
Yes.
that wants a relationship with you, wants you to take care of you in certain ways, and wants you to have a good life. And the path to salvation is through this God.
Mhm.
And he came to earth to show you as an incarnate being, I want to connect with you. I want to be, direct relationship with you, to the point where I took death on a cross as something to show you I didn't fight back. This is the depth of love that I have for you, and that kind of thing. It's an interesting concept. It's a different viewpoint in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that aligns with a lot of similar things that I feel. I think one of the hard things for me is related to prayer.
Yeah.
Like the Bible, from a theological standpoint, actually teaches that God does not respond to need. He doesn't respond to want. He only responds to faith. Because if God responded to need, then every person with cancer would just need healing and immediately be healed.
Yeah.
And every person who's ever been broke and doesn't have money and needs money, they would just have that money.
Yeah.
And if we got what we wanted because we believed in God, then we would just have all the things we wanted. He only responds to, according to the teachings, to faith. Majority of Christians don't even think this. They don't study it. They don't care. They just pray to feel better. And for me, it's sort of like, it was my first obsession. You know, it's like you're not a bodybuilder anymore, but you have a wealth of knowledge from being one, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a devout Christian. Really wouldn't consider myself a Christian. I do believe in God, but I'm a spiritual person. But I have a ton of knowledge from years of studying and going to courses and being in like unaccredited Bible colleges, of course, because accredited Bible colleges were a sin, right?
Sure.
But just constantly reading the book and studying it and, you know, going through the etymology, the original Greek and Hebrew meanings of words
Yeah.
and things like that. And it's just it's made it hard for me to lean back into prayer because I don't believe it. So I'm not going to pray for it because I don't believe that it's going to happen.
Sure.
I don't believe that me asking God to do anything for me is going to happen because ultimately I've come to believe that what God is doing is what God is going to do. And there's not
So
anything
you don't think
can
there's any point to pray?
I actually
don't.
I actually have a comeback on that one,
Yeah,
or
sure.
pushback on that
I'd
one.
love to hear it.
So,
I know you are, but what am I?
yeah.
Good one.
Yeah, I'm trampolining your glue. So one of the things that I'll say back is that, you know, since kind of more becoming spiritual and like and whatnot, I've gotten, I wouldn't say I pray. I mean, I pray, but it's more like not like wishing for things, it's more like thanking for things, right? So it's like, hey, thank you that things have been going so well. So I thank you that things are going smooth. Thank you that it's not, you know, just like progress. I think for progress, like, thank you for this. Please keep it coming.
Do you know why?
Do I know why I do that?
Yeah.
Uh,
If I ask anything that makes you uncomfortable, you
no,
just
no,
tell
no,
me.
no.
No,
I
you
don't
have
think
to
I
answer. There's no.
Yeah.
no, I don't think I know why. Maybe it's a release. Maybe it's like a self deficiency where I can't like give myself that own credit for better things happening or like the hard work that goes into that.
Do you think that maybe if you keep saying thank you, it'll keep happening?
Yeah, that's how I feel. Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing as asking for something. And I'm being a little bit petty,
So
but it's like you need to do it. And a lot of Christians pray in the same way. And it's like, I need to say thank you or else God's going to stop blessing me.
I would say it's less of like a fear of it stopping and more of like guilt. Like I've been giving something,
Yeah.
and like to not show gratitude for that is like impolite, or like what would, you know, if I made somebody's life better, I would, you know, like
Yep.
it's a human aspect of it almost.
Yeah, and I think that guilt is the heart and soul of the Christian religion. I think that it's the heart and soul of most American religions
I think it's
is
guilt or shame.
guilt or shame,
But I
100%.
know, but which one?
I
Because
think
there's a huge
they're
difference,
different,
right?
but I think it's both.
Okay.
I think that let me try to think of a way to explain this.
Guilt is like there's something wrong with the process. Shame is there's something wrong with you.
I think it's both.
Okay.
Yeah, I think both. I think that you feel guilty about the way you act, the process,
Sure.
and then you feel ashamed of who you are because of the way you've been acting. So I think it's both, man. I think in the more I can make you feel bad, and this is the thing about Jesus, right? Is Jesus is the pill. He's the
Okay.
pill. He's the medicine. And this is just I've explained this.
Sure.
I don't have anything against Christianity at all. I love this for you. I'm not trying to like
Mhm.
attack you.
Well,
but
this is free, open conversation.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is
I know.
where
Yeah.
it should be always.
I have a lot of people that know me that still know me from when I was in
Yeah.
the religion. And I don't want to be offensive like people are dumb or
Sure.
bad, right? But I just am in this place where I can only see this in one way now. And it's glaring for me that I can only
That's interesting.
I
Do you
can
think
only-
That's a very
that? Do you
specific
think you'll
thing you
maybe
just
come?
said.
Yeah.
it is specific, but I'm stuck on this. I'm gonna say
Stuck
this
too.
that's stuck there. Yeah, I am on this thing that I can't get past. And it is the fact that I have a book that's been written by men that I am telling you is the voice of God that is telling you consistently and over again that you are not enough unless you believe in the pill, the medicine that's inside the book. And if you follow all the rules in the book, then you can go to heaven.
Did you ever feel like you got named by Jesus Christ or something like that?
How do you mean?
Like, did you ever feel like this is what Nate is? Did you ever feel like you got labeled by that voice that you used to think that was whatever you thought it was?
It, that to be honest, that would be an understatement. My life was consumed by it. It was everything.
Right. So what did that
Yeah.
call you? What were the
Um,
names that you were at that
I
time?
don't know, man. It's been so long since I've even thought about that
Okay.
type of thing. I can't. It's hard for me to even know how to respond to the question.
It's kind of weird how you're asking that question and like the way you like know exactly what he's talking about. It's almost like it's like a
Yeah,
like a
I'm
possession kind of
lost.
thing almost.
I don't mean that. Like
No,
that.
no,
I'm
like what did
saying,
it
like,
call you? Like it's almost like a
No.
spirit, like almost like
well, that's what you
Maybe,
were praying.
maybe ask it a different way.
I'm just saying, if you ever felt like you said like you were enough, like so, did you ever feel like that from like the voice of God, or what you thought it was? At the
Well,
time?
yeah, of course. I always believed throughout religion that whenever I was praying and I was having those emotional interactions with myself,
Sure.
which is what I believe now,
So it was you the whole time.
I believe that. Yeah, I
Okay,
believe
yeah.
that. I believe that interaction is with my own brain, and those moments would make me feel like I'm enough, but only because first I was ashamed enough to say I'm so sorry for everything, and I just want you to make me enough because I must decrease and he must increase, and all these things that you hear and you've been told over and over again since every preacher gets behind the pulpit and says. And ultimately, what this all leads to is so that, and this is just my opinion, I think that there's a portion of people who are true Christians who are seeking this because of their soul. And then I think that
Yeah.
there's always the rich guy who is just taking advantage of the people who are doing it for real and always benefits and doesn't have to pay taxes and gets money.
Do you think
There's
your
always
dad
corruption
was? Do
somewhere.
you think your dad was the second one?
And this is the interesting part. I'm so glad you asked me this. I'm so happy you asked me this because I have never believed that my father did anything except for actually fucking believe it.
Yeah.
And I give him all that credit. And I still to this day, when we talk, I that's why I don't hate the people.
Yeah.
I don't, because I know there are people who believe it, but there's this massive portion of people, my men, who they believe it because it's benefiting them. And they're not big enough in here and in here to admit it to themselves.
I'd like to go to the shame and the guilt and
Sure.
that you're not good enough side of things, because I think with Jesus it's a hard one. I do think that's what careful there. I do think that's what pastors and a certain interpretation of the Bible have shoved down our throats. That you're a sinner, that you're not worthy of God, and that for that you should be condemned to hell forever.
Yes.
And that only through the grace of God and through supplication and, making yourself less can you be saved and go to heaven.
Generally, yeah.
And that's generally the spirit of it. And the more I read the Bible, the less I get that out of it, to be honest. And you have a different perspective of, the grace of, that God is all loving in the first place. And I do have trouble with the Old Testament with, a very vengeful God and things like that. And I have not reconciled that at this point in time, to be fair.
Yeah.
And, but I do think there is a reconciliation somewhere in that. But, the things that stand out to me are really that, you become a son of God. You become almost a brother to Jesus whenever you become in this. And Jesus wasn't trying to make you lesser. So you look at the Greek word sin, and it's actually, to miss the mark, like
Yes.
like an archer.
Correct.
It is not you're an evil person and you did evil. But there is a part of it that says, the fall of man, could be the eating of the apple of the tree, is more of like an identification with the flesh. That there is some sort of deeper soul within you, the consciousness, whatever you want it to be, but you are so predetermined to satisfy the flesh that there is nothing that's pointing to God for you. And so you are missing the mark on the way you should be living your life. And to repent doesn't mean get down on your knees and and grovel like a worm. It actually means to think about your thinking, to change your mind about things. And so you have to, you look at it a different way. And I think that it's not so much you should feel guilty for who you are or that you need to follow the rules, because Jesus clearly said with the Pharisees, it's not the law. You can practice the law. You can practice this righteousness in action. And that's actually not what's important. It's actually a deeper process. And I think that you want to practice those actions if you really want a relationship with Jesus, or you really want to love God. And he said, if you love me, keep my commandments.
Yes.
He didn't say, do this and go to heaven. But if you love him and you want that love in return, or not that it's you wouldn't get it already, but if you want to experience that, you have to let these things that dominate your life go. And there's only necessarily one way to let those things go. And that Jesus is, ultimately wanting this, the easy yoke, here's the easy life for you. I can give it to you. But he didn't promise no suffering. He didn't promise that you wouldn't have suffering, because he himself had a very suffer-filled life,
Right.
that kind of thing. So it's it's hard to reconcile, but I think there are some other ways to look at it in there.
100%. And I think that I'm glad that you said that and push back on that, because a large part of this is there's a big difference between a healthy human being
Yeah.
approaching Christianity as a way to God.
Yeah.
And someone being raised like I was.
100%.
Does that make sense?
100%.
I think we should just freeze right quick on that distinction, is like Christianity as a way to God. So like,
yeah, that's what I was trying to say from the get.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So like kind of like, yeah, like there's more than one way.
There's
right?
more than one way.
And that's
for
why
sure.
I
Well,
in my readings,
to be clear, in the Bible it says, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except for through me.
Correct.
Interestingly, there's two ways to look at that. There is a prescription that you have to come through me to go to the Father, or there is a description that you will not get to the Father except through me, as he is that, the
Correct.
connecting piece through the Father, not so much that, so you could look at it both ways. As description, this is the path. If you're going to go to the Father, like, it's going through me. I am the connector between humans and the unmanifest God that is the creator of all, all being, all consciousness, things
Correct.
like that. Or you have to go through me in terms of belief and supplication and these kind of things to get to God. And so those are two different ways to look at it.
Exactly. And I think if you break it down and you look at the process outside of the verbiage that's written in the text,
Mhm.
and just the process in which is being asked of you,
Yeah.
and then you overlap that with many other religions,
Yes.
they are the same,
Yes.
right? And it's like, yeah, if you become a really high level jiu-jitsu black belt or a really, really, really well-rounded like world level wrestler, the process is really similar, but the rules that are written in the book are completely different.
Yes.
And if you go get in a fight, both those guys are going to fuck you up.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's a funny analogy to basically say, yes, I agree. If you're a Christian, then if you want to find God, the process requires that you go this way.
Yeah.
And then if you pick to go this way, the process is different.
The process is different, but I would argue that ultimately they're similar, but they are different. But I would argue almost, and I can't say that I'm really made up my mind. This
Sure.
is just my beliefs in 5 years could be so laughable for what I'm talking about right now.
Same.
Right. But, if, God revealed himself to everybody, which is written in the Bible, that he reveals himself through nature and things like that, wouldn't reveal himself to only one group of people, revealed him to everyone. And that if there were a way to God, which would be, the Holy Spirit really guiding you, then, the connection could be that Jesus is the connecting pieces, that the Christ is the connecting pieces, and he is the Son of God, something that it ultimately says in Genesis that he was the one that created the world.
Yes.
The Word created the world, and the Word is Jesus. He's the Logos.
Yeah, that's a very monotheistic viewpoint, which is interesting for someone coming into Christianity at this, like, really heavily at this point, to believe that way. Because most people, they don't even go that deep to understand that. But that's very true.
Yeah,
and
and
the
so
Bible
you could,
does say that.
Yeah,
Yes.
so you could go to the Father, the unmanifest, existence of consciousness in Buddhism, and the pathway through that would be the Holy Spirit and Jesus.
Yeah.
Under different names.
Yes.
Under different names, under different, the same experience. Because as I read the gurus and I read the mystics of different religions, I saw the same experience. I saw the same description of God. I saw the same bliss and the same, all of these different things where they were speaking the same language, but in different words.
Yes.
And that's where I have a hard part with some of Christianity.
Correct.
Because I do believe that the grace is there for anyone.
That's, and Nate, you said that it's very interesting because like I chose, or like people choose Christianity when coming back into it,
Yes.
or whatnot. I wouldn't necessarily say that's true in my case, and you can ask Jared. Like my interest started by reading the Quran, just because it had a more open idea of like how the Word of God travels. It doesn't like, it doesn't discount Judaism or Christianity. It says like, you guys are all my brothers under like the same God and whatnot. And basically it looks at like these prophets like Moses or Jesus or Muhammad as like different like ways to interpret it to those people at that time period.
I mean, up until Ephraim and Manasseh, it's the same religion.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it is.
It's exactly the same religion.
And it's ultimately the same God.
You're
talking, they're
exactly the same.
It's the same God. They're both talking to the Abrahamic God.
Yes.
Which is
100%.
the Father, however you want to say it.
Yahweh, Allah.
Yeah.
It's
whatever.
different words. Allah
For the same.
Allah is Arabic for God.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're all the same. Ultimately, they're talking to the same God. Now, do they have the same beliefs? No.
I think that the big thing for Christianity that always makes me emotional thinking about, no longer believing and having and feeling is the idea of the Messiah.
Yeah.
I was just very, I mean, the type of religious experiences that we had were insane. Like we would go in the church as a group collectively and travail. If you don't know what that is, just YouTube it for hours.
Really?
Like sometimes 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
We did a 24-hour prayer project every year. As a high school kid, I was really attached to being a preacher and a minister and wanted to be a powerful man of God.
Yeah.
So I would go to the church before school as a teen and pray for 1 hour a day and then 2 to 3 hours every night. And this can be,
What made you do the duration? Sorry to interrupt. I'm curious. What was that? Was it just
More
was
is
any-
better.
I think it's just got a lot to do with the way the church peddled prayer.
Where was it? Because I'm not saying, obviously, I'm not picking on
Mhm.
you, but like,
No.
where does the pray for like hours at a time thing come from? I think the longest prayer in the Bible from Jesus is 90 seconds.
Yeah, I think a lot.
No, he went up and he would pray to God overnight.
There's a lot of
Yeah,
there's a
but
lot
like,
of
yeah,
there's a lot of
himself.
stories of other disciples and people in the Old Testament, particularly praying for very long duration, sometimes days. The
Sure, and fasting and all.
Yeah,
I know what
yeah,
you're saying.
yeah.
Maybe I said the
really,
different
really,
thing.
honestly, it's because God, fuck, can we just keep talking about this? For a
Yeah,
minute?
we got no problem.
Okay, all right, let's just talk.
If people don't want to listen to a long podcast, that's their problem.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
because I can tell you guys about this stuff. This is crazy. I've never talked to anybody except for close friends, my wife, and I'll try to share this the best I can. It's hard for me because it's not something I've really verbalized to many people.
Yeah,
my
I'm sure.
therapist maybe, right?
Yeah.
But you, I don't know what it is. I don't know how to explain this to you. But you pray for long enough, and then you start to have these what can be described as nothing else but spiritual breakthroughs, like these emotional
Mhm.
moments of, I mean, crying so hard that I couldn't speak and just having like visions and just visual stimuli. Like it felt like I was on drugs.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was going to ask you.
Like
I wanted to
crazy
No, yeah, I believe it.
experiences
I
after
wanted to-
hours of this.
I wanted to ask you that because you said earlier about how you would like you'll never feel those like spiritual experiences again
Yes.
and how powerful they were.
Yes.
Now, how would you compare them to like
LSD or mushrooms.
yeah or drugs or
Very similar to a small dose of mushrooms or the right amount of any sort of psychedelic. It's very similar to some of the body feelings. The difference is when you do this on your own, I felt like you were priming yourself for the experience. And then the experience was like a release.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful and special. Mushrooms is just like, oh, you're sober? Well, be here now. And you're
Yeah.
just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Right. And then it's overwhelming. The visuals, the feeling, the body feeling, the breath, everything. It's like a lot. But I feel like it was very similar to that. And I became addicted to this. And
A
I would,
natural high.
yeah, and I would just do it every day. Like
Yeah.
every day I'm talking like prayer, bro, like throwing down, talking about all kinds of crazy things. And my relationship with God, a lot of the pain and hurt that I had with this is because I would talk to God as if he were there and he were a person.
Yeah.
I would curse. I didn't curse in front of anybody. My parents didn't allow me to, but I felt like God loved me truly and his peace and his grace was real. And that peace that passes all understanding was real, and that I could just be myself in his presence and just talk and be and exist and say anything I wanted to say. And it would, I remember as a kid, I was being bullied as a teen, and I would pray and cry and care deeply for my bully, praying that God would save him because I didn't know what was going on in his life and how bad his life was and who he was and where this hate was coming from, while the kid's bullying me and I'm doing nothing about it.
Yeah.
Crazy. But
Well,
that's
you're
what
doing
the duration.
something, but
Yeah.
you're not doing anything.
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, not doing anything about it because he was in dick forever. But and then we would go on to these conferences where people would do what I was doing alone in a group of 1,500 people.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, bro, some of the things that would happen, feelings that you would have, experiences that you would have, or undeniably real, whether manifested by my own mind or truly the presence of God, were real.
Yeah.
They just were.
100%.
And so those things are the part of me that I couldn't let go, that I'm grateful that I had because they've kept me spiritual.
Why do you think you can't? Because you literally saw it with your own eyes, like you were a witness
felt
to
it and saw it and experienced it for myself.
Yeah.
See,
myself.
that's very interesting, and because it kind of goes back to the power of like human energy and like what we believe, because there's like a like poltergeist or like in hunting cases and whatnot, people can like, I guess, there's been physical documentation of poltergeist where like negative things happen or like energy imprints on that area or like family or person to where they have like a hunting experience, like where things physically move and whatnot, and it's just based on like energy. And do you feel like you can almost manifest that experience similar to like that, or
I in my most spiritual times, I feel as though those experiences were communication with a higher plane of energy,
Yeah.
like a God. God and I were having a moment. And then in my most logical state of being, I believe that I was in a, bringing myself to complete mind emptiness, or with lack of a better term, emotional masturbation.
Okay.
Just making myself so emotional that I would have a release because my life was pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like abusive, bizarre, oppressive, shameful
Yeah.
existence in that life,
Yeah. Can I share something?
Please.
I don't think I've ever told anybody this.
Oh,
other
sweet.
Than, other than my wife. Maybe.
Yeah.
And maybe one of you guys or something like that. But it was what ultimately led me to God, right? Everything was very business related. I hired this business coach and he was talking to my wife about something, and he was talking about these meditation tapes that he had that are, ultimately emotional clearing. It was like letting, feeling an emotion come up and letting it go. I didn't understand it. I didn't really care. It was the first night. I'd tried to meditate before in like old school meditation, just sit there and breathe and things like that. And, this night, nothing special. Put this tape on. The first one is like this breathing, which was just a deep breathing. It wasn't anything special, nothing crazy. And then the next tape, and that was probably 3-4 minutes, right? The next tape was probably about, 5, 6, 7 minutes. So within 12 minutes, in my estimation, I start breathing. And this one was like, focus on the third eye, right? Tap the forehead, focus on the third eye. And I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily believe this shit, but I'll do it, right? I feel ridiculous while I'm doing it.
But you're interested to see if it's real.
But I'm interested just to see what happens.
Yeah.
And so I tap, and so I start breathing, and I'm sitting there, and I feel this kind of this tingling or this feeling on my forehead right here, kind of where the third eye would be or something, right? And I'm like, that's weird, but kind of intuitively I was like paying attention to it, giving it attention. And over time it seemed to kind of protrude, almost like I could feel something out of my forehead, right? And sticking out, a half an inch or an inch. And I was like, and intuitively I knew that if I took my focus away from it, it would go away. And so I kept my focus there, breathing. Maybe the thoughts weren't there, but there were thoughts because I knew what I was doing. I knew, that if I took my focus away, that I would lose this experience. And so all of a sudden, this thing kind of shoots out of my forehead, off into infinity, right? And if I moved my head, it moved with it, kind of a feeling, right? And so I'm sitting there, fucking crazy experience. Boom! All of a sudden, literally swear to you, my head knocks back, and this bright circular golden light hits me in the forehead like I'm getting a download, almost like you're watching, the Windows and, media player kind of like do those things, and literally like sucks into my head. And I'm like, holy shit, there's a God. And I have made contact in some way.
Sounds like you did 5-6 grams of mushrooms.
Yeah, sounds like
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But within 12 minutes, with no extra techniques, nothing at all that was there that was influencing me, no belief of what was going to happen, no expectation of what was going to happen. And from then on, I have been a seeker is the way that I would call it.
Yeah,
and
that's cool, man.
The craziest experience of my life.
Yep.
And was, grace or whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
From a higher power, from God, that just communicated to me and let me know, hey, I fucking exist.
Yeah.
And I was just, from then I was like, okay, I have to go. And that's when I started reading just as much as I could get my hands on from other religions. Like I didn't start with Christianity. I did not go to Christianity. That has been the last one that I went to because just rubbed me the wrong way growing up so much because it was all so much about the law. It was all so much about behavior. It was all so much about you're not
There's
good
a lot
enough.
of shame.
Well,
There's a lot of shame.
That's what we were told.
Yes.
Because ultimately, if they're not telling you you're bad, they can't take your money. But when you try to approach religion from a different perspective, you can see it as you were talking before.
So second experience that I had, maybe a year or two later, something like that. And I'd read the gurus, I've read, different, Hindu gurus, Buddhist gurus. I've read, all sorts of different things that I could get my hands on, new age people that have, all sorts of beliefs and things. And so I just sit there and I was writing something on my phone and I kind of was journaling and I essentially said something to Jesus, as if like, hey, you know, almost like I want to know if you're real, or I want to know, do you
Turn the fan on if
exist?
you're real.
Yeah, turn the fan on. Turn the fan on if you're real or something
Classic
like that.
Bible story.
I've done that, like when trying to believe in God. When I
Yeah.
was a kid, when in high school, and the dryer was going, it's like make a loud thump if you exist
Yeah.
or something.
And he's not,
Anything you can.
they
Yeah.
say specifically that he's not here to give you signs and things like that in the Bible. But so, I'm sitting there and I think nothing of it. I go get in the bath in the shower, 3, 4, 5 minutes later or something like that. And I'm taking a shower, and then all of a sudden in the back of my head, I just hear this song, and it's a Bible school song, and it's, yes, Jesus loves you. Yes, Jesus loves me. Whatever it is. And I was just immediately,
Because the Bible tells me so.
because the Bible tells me so, and immediately brought to tears. Immediately, just like a holy crap revelation of just
Wow,
like,
man, that's beautiful.
crazy, the two craziest experiences of my life. And ultimately that second one was what brought me back to, okay, I'm going to go look at Christianity again. I don't necessarily, we've talked about it already. I don't think there's, I don't think God only revealed himself to one group of people or anything like that. But there are unique things about Jesus, and there are unique things about what he says and the relationship that he's looking for, and
True.
a conversational relationship that Jesus wants with everyone.
Mhm.
And that was ultimately what led me back to church, probably like in the 5 weeks.
Okay.
And so back to church, and I could listen to church, and there's a lot of that same stuff. Where I'm
Life
like,
Church?
No, it's New Spring.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and it's a cool vibe. I like it. They do things the right way, but again, still things that he says that trigger me in a way where I'm like,
oh, come on, man.
this isn't the way I feel, but that's not important.
Then it's cool that you're seeing it that way. That means that's cool, man. You're really finding something real, which is I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
And that the thing is like, and this is not to take away from your experience at all.
Sure.
I'm not going to talk down about it.
No,
I'm
that's
only going
okay.
to talk about myself and say that.
Just move this way a little bit.
Oh, move it this way.
Or toward like that.
This way. I'm just kidding. That openness of heart and mind that led you to those experiences.
Yeah.
I lived in that way as a child and as a young man. And so those experiences of just having those types of feelings, it almost, you ever have, like, this is a very vulgar way of talking about that. I almost feel bad because we're talking about religion, but it's like, you ever like just get rubbed so much that it's not enjoyable anymore from a sexual standpoint?
Well,
It's
yeah,
like,
I was gonna make the
it's the
same
same-
analysis. It's like some girls, like don't enjoy sex as much or sexual things because they might have been like molested or sexually assaulted as a younger kid, right?
Maybe, but I think it just really becomes to the point where like they stopped.
You get a little rug burn.
Yeah, they almost stopped having significance.
Yeah.
And then the frequency of those types of things became so often that I started to wonder if I wasn't doing it to myself.
Yeah.
And that's why whenever I talk about the experiences, like you're talking about these very like you're skeptical and then you have a moment. That's why I feel like the experiences that I attach myself to believe that there is a higher power are those times where it was so unbelievably intense that it couldn't have been me forcing it.
Yeah.
That's what I think
There's-
is a very interesting part about religion. When people talk about going in and out, I'm like, that's what I was thinking about. I'm like, think about the stuff like here, not here.
Yeah.
Like, because like you said, like you've seen things that are true. I'm
They
not
have
saying
to
it
be,
proves anything,
Right.
but you know what you saw.
Yeah, whether it's objectively true or not, I
Yeah.
can't deny it or else I'm not living my truth.
I would have thought that
to come full circle.
I would have thought that I hallucinated with that golden light.
Yes.
If I didn't feel that feeling in my forehead for days afterwards. Days, I felt this little energy feeling and this little protrusion out of my head for days. And I came to work the next day just like,
Did you have your wife like, hey, can you feel this real quick?
no. I told her, the first thought that came to my mind is I have to tell my wife.
I gotta tell my wife.
Like, I gotta tell Nicole that God is real. Like, it was just the only thought in my mind was like, I have to tell her what happened. And then I don't think I really told anybody else for the most part.
I hated God and religion for a long time. And for me, the moment that brought me back to just
being open.
I would say it's almost like, God, ah, fuck. That's kind of how I felt.
Yeah.
Like, God damn it.
Yeah.
I have to deal with this.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? That was my
100%.
feeling. It wasn't excitement because I just had like there is not really any spiritual experience for this.
Yeah, you can leave that open.
That's whatever.
It's okay. There's no real crazy spiritual experience
100%.
for me that I feel like will happen to convince me, or at least I didn't think there was. But what for me was LSD
Yeah.
at Bonnaroo.
Really?
Yeah.
Lord works in mysterious ways.
Indeed he does.
Dude, I'm telling you. So this was the last night.
Yeah.
That
Of course it was.
It had to be.
The last night that we were going to go hard, right? The last day was supposed to be a Cali sober day, right? So it was just like,
That sucks.
I mean, it was 7 days, bro.
That's
On the
a long
seventh
time.
day, you're
6
kind
days.
of you're fried, So it was like we're on the 6th day, and we saw Lil Nas X, and then followed up by Lil Nas X was Odessa. And if you guys don't know who that is, you just listen to any of their music, and it'll make a lot more sense.
Okay.
And my
I'm
wife,
familiar.
yeah, hell yeah, baby. And my wife and I were just going through a lot of. We're married. Period.
It's hard.
It's
Marriage is hard.
It's hard. It's a hard
Absolutely.
thing to do, right? And so I was feeling very alone, not in a bad way, but just of my own, we'll say,
Sure.
in this moment. And we were, the peak had already come and gone, and there's 25,000 people, probably, maybe more, standing shoulder to shoulder for as far as the eye can see, forward, backwards, left, right, everywhere. And Odessa's playing, and I don't know. I didn't see anything. I had no visions. I just had this. It would be the same feeling that I would have as a teen, seeking for it, begging for it, looking for it, asking God to touch me, to fill me, to let me see you, to let me know you, touch my heart, let me see who you are, clean me, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I have this moment where I felt the same way, this peace, this certainty, this knowing that God was there. And it was like whoever or whatever was there was almost like smiling, like, dude, it's cool, man. It's okay that you're dealing with this in this way.
Yeah.
And I'm here for you whenever you're ready to come back and figure out who we are.
Uh-huh.
And in that moment, I felt like because of the setting, I was free to think of it and feel it however I wanted to. I was able to say to myself, maybe it's just a rekindling of my relationship with me or whatever I wanted to say. But that was ultimately, and I just started weeping, like bawling. Like I had a hat with me and I covered my face and I was just crying. And I was just like, oh my gosh, okay, well, I guess that's that, So yeah, I mean, I think that some of those experiences you have, you just can't deny how what you know about yourself at that point.
Yeah. There's something interesting in I think it's Hindu, if I remember right. And they said very specifically not to seek the experiences, that you can make them happen, through the yoga postures and through the type of breathing exercises and all of these different things that you could make these kind of experiences happen, but the experience is not the thing. And that the experience is really kind of like a point in the right direction.
I love Eastern religion for that reason. Like
And
it's so good that way. And
so
there's things that we were told to seek it.
Yeah. When, they even talk like fasting. Fasting is one of those examples. You can have a mystical experience if you fast long enough.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably a good reason to for certain people that have never had an experience like that. But they basically tell you like fasting is not for that. It's not to get the experience. Don't seek the experience in what you're doing. That, the connection with God, whatever it is, the way they describe it is essentially beyond that. It is not the experience.
Speaking of fasting, I did do a 7-day water only.
Really?
Twice, actually.
That's crazy.
Yeah, man.
That is intense. I wouldn't make it.
It was a wild time. It's a wild time. It's so interesting to hear about that, man. I haven't heard someone have a genuine spiritual experience, someone that I know isn't crazy in a long time.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool to hear.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I can still even talking
Just
about it.
feel it.
Some
Yeah.
of it's there. It's the weirdest thing.
No, it's
But
great.
it's what
good.
leads me back,
Yeah.
over and over again. And I swear to God, I was reading business book after business book after business book, and then I have barely ever picked one up since then.
I wonder if it's almost like someone knows God's real. Well, I mean, not almost, it is. It's like people have figured it out and they actually, okay. That's what this tattoo is for, guys.
Yeah.
Have I shown you this? Okay.
If you can get it over.
I'm gonna figure it out. I got tiny calves. It's gonna get up there. I have a tattoo of a church
Okay.
that has a skull as its body
Yeah.
and it's on fire.
Okay. Yeah, I see that.
And it's a reference to Matthew 21,
Okay.
where he says, for I said this should be my house of prayer, and you have turned it into a den of thieves.
Yeah.
It's whenever Jesus went into the temple because they were selling doves for sacrifice. Whenever the sacrifice formula was to bring the very best you had to God, they were cheapening
Catholic Church move.
Exactly. They were selling, and therefore the church making money. Now I'm going to rant so hard. Now the church is making money on something that is sacred.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I got this, is because that's how I feel about it. And it's like, the part that I'm coming back to admit to myself and be honest with myself is that both can exist at the same time. God can be real and powerful and loving and caring.
It's like that truth.
Yeah, exactly. He can be real at the same time as there being corrupt people who
100%.
take advantage. And I just,
man.
When I see a church building, I'm just like,
I remember I was saying this to Jared. I don't think it really meant anything, but it meant something to me more. Is I notice a lot of people that have problems with Christianity later in life. When I talk to them about it, they tell me about the people. They tell me about like the stuff that the people made them do, the people, what they believed.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's nothing or ever bring it up, but it's like, you don't have a problem with Christianity. You have a problem with the way you were taught.
You don't know that until you come back to it. Because the way I was taught it was through those people.
Of course. And I'm leading to this question because you have kids, right?
Yes, I have kids. Yeah.
Okay. How do you feel about approaching religion with your kid? Because I feel like that I'm listening to you, like what you're saying and everything. But I feel like that's, to be honest with you, that's the answer. What you believe, what you're doing. Yeah, that's
true.
I make sure my kid does not subscribe to any sort of religion.
Yeah,
we talked to him about God, but I refuse to allow him right now to just be able to decide what our religion, because I believe that if you go down the path of this is the way, then that way will corrupt you.
Yeah.
I'm just convinced of that.
Sure.
I think that if you pick one and you're like, okay, this is it, then that's like, well, then no, you're missing it.
You're doomed to fail.
You're literally missing the whole point. That's my feeling, is you can't do that. You have to do what you're talking about, which is, in my opinion, this organic.
Got to cross train.
Yeah, exactly. You got to cross train. You got to cross train.
Doing real pull-ups.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, that's just how I feel about it. So he believes in God and he talks about Jesus, and I'm okay with that. I love Jesus. I love the idea of Jesus. And
you guys homies?
Well, I wouldn't say that, but when he's not my enemy, I'm not convinced that he rose on the third day. That's my problem.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm not, that's why I'm not a Christian.
Gotcha. Sure.
That's actually where the problem lies, is like the entire idea of Christianity being a beautiful thing is the idea that the Messiah came, died, and then rose again to prove it. And if that's not there, then it's not real.
So if that was taken away, everything else would be fine.
I think the principles that come with the Bible, if the values are taken in context, it's amazing.
Yeah, undeniably so. The golden rule.
Yeah, and I think that you can say that about a lot of different religions.
Yeah,
but for me to subscribe to it as like the way that I believe a person should,
needs to
identify by it.
How you did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I would have to then believe that is true, and I don't.
So how you did believe was not how anyone believes, in your opinion, or how it should believe.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
Do you feel
like that's a real? I feel like that would be really arrogant of me to say.
Okay, that's fair. That's why I wanted to say it.
Yeah. No, I don't think that at all. I think that there are a lot of people who are far better Christian than I was, specifically because of the arrogance that I had as a Christian at that time.
Yeah,
I think there are a lot of people who do a much better job of just being a Christian and living their life. I thought it was my divine purpose to save the world.
Yeah. And that's why, believe it or not, that's why I was asking if you ever got like a label or felt like you were something, not in a weird possession way. I mean, like if something like I am preacher.
Oh yeah, I'm a prophet.
that's
I
what
was
I mean.
raised to believe that I was a prophet of
That's
God.
exactly what I
Like,
was going.
gifts of the Spirit, like tongues and interpretation, prophecy, laying on of hands, of people passing out, throwing themselves around and shouting and going crazy. Like that's the church I grew up in.
Sure.
But what's the problem do you have with the Jesus raising from the dead on the third day?
I just don't. I can't. There's no way to prove that it happened. So
Sure.
from a religious standpoint, you have to take a logical leap there that I just don't.
Okay, that's fair.
I think you got to take a logical leap to be like, yeah, I believe that that's true.
So do you think that Jesus was just a man? If you don't believe he rose from the
Yeah,
dead, then you would,
which does in its own way validate it as a path that you could follow, right?
sure.
Because I think all religions have this common theme where someone really does it right, whether the magic, for lack of a better term,
Sure.
of the story is true or not. The Buddha existed,
Yeah.
Muhammad existed, Jesus existed.
Buddha died of food poisoning.
But I'm just saying,
I found that out the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Food poisoning?
Food poisoning.
Jeez. Well, I'll say
That's
this.
unfortunate.
Should have meditated more or something.
I guess I don't know. But I'll say
The best of us always go out on the toilet.
Yeah,
so
that could be a
true.
good one.
Elvis.
So I struggle with a little bit of this as well, because the way I always looked at it, I said, if God became a human and knew he was God, then the suffering on the cross means less. The suffering that happens, because if you know that you exist and you're an all-powerful being, do you really suffer in the way that humans do? Do you really suffer in the same way that we don't know what's next? We don't know that this pain is just part of our, nervous system or something like that. And so was it the same experience? And I've had to come to a different conclusion on that, and that if Jesus incarnated, if the creator of the world incarnated as a human being, that being had to empty. And it does say that in the Bible, that he emptied himself.
Correct.
To the point where he was fully human and denied the godness of him, to the point where he could have not. And so when he says everything that's done by him is done by the Father, he had to quite literally be powerless beyond, what a regular human being could have done. And when he felt like God forsook him, I don't know the past tense, why have you forsaken me? He had to fully feel that this separation from God the Father as he was a human being.
Well, they try to tell you that in a really big way when they're talking about him saying that he knows what's coming, but he can't let this cup pass from him, talking about the cup of suffering.
Yeah.
And then he says that he cried tears of blood.
Yeah.
That motherfucker was scared.
He knew what was coming. It had to be a bad
terrified.
suffering for it to make sense, for it to be a story that means what it's supposed to mean. He could not have been fully God in those moments, and had to have been fully human with, obviously the deeper, godness of him being put in the back burner and forgotten about nearly.
Yeah. And the whole idea of Jesus to me is hard sometimes, because it's just it forsakes our accountability to our own mistakes from a principle standpoint. And it's the idea that whatever we've done is forgiven because someone else came here and died for us.
Sure.
And I think that's a hard one too. But the principle, the idea, is a cop-out from accountability for some people. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, if you have a healthy understanding of life, and you subscribe to Christianity as a way to heighten your spiritual existence, or because you want to know God better, that's great. But those that feel like they have to be a Christian or else they're going to burn, not because they know God is real, not because they had an experience, not because they want to be closer to God, but simply because they think if they don't, they're going to burn, then Jesus is only a point of guilt.
And there's a lot of people that use Jesus to cover up the shady things in their life that they do.
Sure.
There's a lot of shame and guilt. So let me ask you this, guys, both of you, this question, actually. If you found everything you know about Christianity when you were 18, do you think you'd feel any differently about it now?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if I were like raised normal and then found God as an adult,
then somehow just downloaded Matrix style everything you already knew, you would be.
I don't know, maybe. I think I'd see jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's a theoretical question.
It'd be like a developing understanding, and I may come to some of the same conclusions, but
I would have been more open to it. There was a big period of my life where I was very anti-religion.
Well,
because of the Christian school that I went to.
Yep.
it
And
seems
so
like
it
there
was
has to be like
very
that
much-
religious trauma.
Yeah, there was some sort of religious,
That's kind of what I'm
some
getting
sort of
at,
religious
is that-
blockage.
Yeah.
I had a blockage, and it's not fully gone, to be fair. I go to church.
I
And
don't think it should be, man.
and they're singing. Well, I'll give you an example. They're singing, and I'm not singing. I don't know the words to these songs. They're not the songs that I grew up singing or anything, and I'm not fully like there yet, in that way. To be,
You don't have to sing, by the way.
you don't
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah.
I
I just like the
understand.
way you put that.
but I'm not fully there yet. But I can feel, if I allow myself, these tears that are forming and this blockage inside of myself that stops them. And that if I were to let that open, I would just be weeping for uncontrollably and not be able to control it. And some of that's an embarrassment,
Yeah.
to be fair. I'm not going to go and
So you're
start
ashamed of the
crying.
shame.
100%.
Yeah,
But some
that
of that's
sounds
also
frustrating, man,
it's
for
it's
real.
opening yourself up and being vulnerable in a certain way where I don't know where that came from. That could be a natural thing in my personality that's not willing to be vulnerable.
Every man
Sometimes
doesn't want to be more vulnerable.
I don't know about every man, but a lot of them.
All right.
Yeah, that's true.
I can kind of relate to that a little bit because like my like religious trauma for me
He
was
said, "No, all right." Sorry,
no.
that's funny.
I kind of relate to that because like my religious trauma was after my mom died. So she OD'd and I found her, and then there's the process of them like trying to revive her and whatnot, and the EMS coming in and whatnot, and then so my grandma made me come back in there right before my dad was about to have us leave and go home, and with the priest or whatever because she was Catholic. My mom wasn't Catholic; she hated Catholicism because of like her and my brother, or her and her brother grew up in like the Catholic Church and like Catholic schools and whatnot. And so they had me come back in around her because when I first found her, she still looked normal. Like she hadn't been dead long enough to where like you start the rigor mortis as you get stiff and like turn blue and whatnot. So like the last image I had of my mother that day was a relatively like normal one. I mean, other than that, but then my grandma dragged me back in there and around the body of like the priest to like do like the last rites prayer or whatever. And there was like a blanket over her. And then I remember like the priest just like pulling it off, and it did not look like my mom. Like,
Yeah.
and like I'm a 6th grader, 11-year-old boy, just like seeing this, and then like, before this happened, like 10 minutes before, my grandma was in there like screaming at top of her lungs, like, "No, Lynn!" And it's just like a horrible experience. Neighbors are coming out like on the porch and like trying to figure out what the fuck's going on because there's like a hearse out there and all these cars. And so like that was my religious trauma. Like if God existed, why would he put me through this? If God was real, why would he cause this harm on me? Why would he do this to me? If this was what it's cracked up to be, why is this?
Yeah,
And and I've a thing where Jared was talking about with embarrassment. I also have that too because I was, like I said, a hardcore atheist for so long.
Yeah.
And and that took precedent within the first part of my marriage as well because there was a conversation with my wife when we're going up to Manhattan because I had a house up there for a little bit, and we're going and getting my stuff because we're moving in together. And she's literally bawling because she grew up religious. She believes in God and religious, and bawling because she's sad about how closed off I am to the idea of religion and whatnot. And like it was very uncomfortable 2 hours for me, like with having that there. And so there's a sort of embarrassment now, like coming around to that, and like I guess how harsh I was on the idea, and then having to.
well, if you feel bad about enough about it and you pray hard enough, you'll feel better.
There's
think
there's
you
a
need to be
there's
really
an, it's almost
careful.
like, sorry, go ahead, John.
I'm sorry, I'm kind of being an asshole.
You need to be very careful about like I think the shame and guilt sources in your life. Not you, just people in general.
Yeah,
I think
all
I
of us.
Yeah, and
So-
I'm talking to myself too. And I think you can ascribe that to a lot of different things.
For sure, man.
About what you're thinking of at the time.
I think that's so true, especially if you are looking to get in religion. I mean, honestly, getting into religion is sort of like messing around with drugs.
A little bit.
You better be
It's
careful
closer.
because if you're not and you go in on the wrong day with the wrong mindset, all of a sudden you're the guy who's standing on this edge of the street with a sign saying, if you're gay, you're going to burn.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Yeah, no,
I'm so serious.
yeah.
And this experience you're talking about, I'm sorry that happened to you. That sucks, man. It is. And it is a traumatic experience. And I would say, and again, I want to share, but I don't want to take away anything that you just said. I just want to share that I have had on multiple occasions this type of thing happened. But instead of just praying for them to go to heaven like a Catholic, preachers come and lay hands on this person and they pray for hours for them to come back to life.
Really?
Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus.
That's crazy.
So imagine instead of just praying for her to go to heaven, everyone's like crying, and then you get this false sense of hope
Yeah.
that God's going to save her.
Yeah.
Those types of things happened a lot. I mean, I was asked as a young teen to go to the hospital when me and my wife were just dating. I was 18. And we went to the hospital to pray for a friend's girlfriend who was on life support. And they wanted me to pray that she would come back to life.
Yeah.
And even at that time, I told them no.
Yeah.
I was like, guys, I don't feel comfortable doing this. Like, you're talking about a miracle that I've never even seen or heard of actually happening. I mean, I don't know. We're super ultra mega Christian people, but I'm not going to stand in front of your whole family and try and pray someone back to life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's tough.
That's a big ask, So, I mean, I'm 18 in the hospital room with these people I've never met. She's on life support. Literally, her lungs are expanding because of the machine. And I'm praying for her to rest,
For a miracle to happen.
Yeah. And it's like that type of thing happens all the time. And that's another part of it. It's like that blockage you're talking about. I mean, I wonder how many people find Christianity, especially men, find God. I mean, everybody. I don't want to put a gender on it. Everybody finds
There's only
God.
two.
There's only two. There's just a big, long line in between them. There is, dude. Come on. I mean, I dress like a lesbian anyways. Jared's like, kind of. So there's this thing for me where it's like, darn, man, I forgot what I was going to say. It was so important.
Lesbian joke was too good.
Yeah, it's true. No, where I think people find God in the place where they're looking for themselves and to come to terms with existence and life and the weight of the reality of this world and all of the things that are in it. And it's like having God there to talk to is an easier way to, or a more comfortable way, or a more meaningful way to process that information. Outside of the experiences that you have that are always so, reassuring of God's existence. I just think a lot of the time the church can really play on that. Like I can't tell you how many times every single day I went to church, whether it was a home group or a service or a revival, I was preaching something every day. If we had a day off, it was like Christmas. We were going to church every day.
Yeah.
And every day I would find myself crying while the music was playing and crying at the altar call and having emotional experiences. So I look back on those, and there were a lot of them that were real, but there were also a lot of them that were because I was really sad about what was going on in my life, and the church was a place where I could express those emotions.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
And so I think for me, when dealing with spiritual things, whether it's even an experience at home that's not with God and it's just an experience with my own feelings, I stop myself sometimes.
Yes.
Because I'm afraid of whether or not I'm manipulating myself or not. I get scared like, okay, now is this me trying to make myself have a spiritual experience? Is this me trying to make myself cry because that's what I think I'm supposed to do right now?
Yeah.
Or am I truly this emotional? And I think that the reality is like, if you're going to cry, probably should just let it out. It's always good to just be, right? And let it happen. It's whatever. But it's funny how, because of religion, you can, I feel like it's a great way for people to manipulate you, and that scares me.
Yeah,
that scares me,
That's the tough part.
Yeah.
Is to be able to differentiate that. And, how
you sound like the kind of guy that can.
I've probably due to
think
my
that.
experience.
Yeah, I think you really can do that. I think that you're the sort of person that can. I don't think that other people, I don't know that I can. I don't know that I don't know that I'll ever go back to church consistently.
Yeah.
Like ever.
It was hard. I'll be honest. I was very embarrassed. I was very, it was a long process of thinking about it. I mean, like,
Can I ask,
think about it?
is there a reason why specifically? Just
for that reason. I will be cued to cry when the music starts.
Yeah.
I will be cued to clap and to raise my hands.
Still the same thing.
And then if I don't, I'm going to be conflicted to wondering if that's me
guilt
being.
and shame.
You feel like you're still conditioned almost, like you're afraid of like your like conditioning.
Yes, but it's also going and addressing that conditioning like by the minute. not at home processing it like it's like, oh, the church starts. Oh, hey, how's it going, brother Nathan? Oh, it's how's
right
it?
into
Boom,
your
Oh,
boom,
yeah,
boom,
yeah.
boom, boom. And now I'm like, okay, is this real? Am I doing this because?
And
What am I doing? And then if I don't do it, am I bad? Am I like
Yes.
being rebellious? Am I being a sinner for not choosing to participate in the way I used to participate? What do I do here? Because I don't believe in half of that shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't believe
You don't want to be a hypocrite either.
I don't want to be a hypocrite. I don't want to make other people uncomfortable. And I also like have strong opinions. I'm not trying to hurt people.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's tough. And we deconstructed Christianity in a really interesting way. We went from like devout Pentecostals to like involved in ministry, and that was our life and our job, to like just being in the church, to being people in the church who were talked to often about how we were dressing because we stopped obeying the rules, to going to a lesser religious church that had the same spiritual experiences but less rules, to then going all the way to a place where I still hadn't deconstructed a lot of the theological salvational beliefs, but I was completely done with all of the dress and the lifestyle stuff.
Yeah.
So then I go to Life Church.
To non-denominational.
Yeah. So yes. So we went to.
I knew it was that time.
Exactly. Yeah. So we went to a Life Church, and I really loved Life Church, and I felt like he was doing a good job. I felt like he was a good pastor. But every single Sunday, there was always something there that just had that, hey, it's okay that you're bad.
Yeah.
I have the answer to make it all better.
Yeah.
And also,
That's how you feel about
just
the pill thing, right?
yeah. And it's like, and then also, if you could, for all these good reasons, just donate some money to the church.
Yeah.
And it's like, bro, that's not it. That's not what we're here for. And if 90% of it is good, I was in a place, and I still am, where the 10%
It's
is
enough.
it's enough for me to not be there at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
In the Quran, it doesn't believe in like church and or there's versions I've read. There's probably whatever.
Neither does the Bible.
Yeah, neither. Yeah, it, like
It
I'm
doesn't.
seriously.
That's
I've
not how
read
they
it.
talked about the
I've read
church.
it more than the Bible at this point. And obviously, I read the Bible as a kid and like used to go to like Bible school a couple days a week and all this stuff and whatnot. But no, it yeah. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, it's okay. I'm sorry, man. Yeah, no, the Bible, that's one of the things that me and my dad used to fight over a lot whenever we were still pastoring, because we were kind of pastoring together. You know, I was the associate and he was the head pastor. We would argue about this a lot. Like the Bible does not teach this. Like in the grace dispensation, which is when the veil was split, right? Up on the day Jesus died, that moment meant that the power that was in the holiest of holies was now available for you to just look up and see God and ask for it.
Yeah.
Right. It was free to all of us. So there was no longer this wall between us and God. And I lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So
Same thing just happened to me.
yeah.
There was something really important about this that I want to
Jeez,
get out.
You fools.
Gosh,
It's
man.
not having to go to church, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Thank you. And the idea is that at that time it was free for everyone. There was no temple.
Yeah.
It was now house to house, which is what leads to like Acts 2 and then the upper room, the outpouring of the Holy Spirit, et cetera, et cetera. So like that whole time period, there was no church. And then the church gets reinstated heavily when Council of Nicaea, Constantine, got to be in this building, got to pay us money, the purgatory. We're going to save you from hell if you pay enough. Confession. Tell us all the things that are wrong with you so we can use that information to manipulate you, et cetera. And so that was when the church really, and then all of a sudden we're killing millions of humans.
For sure.
There is not a single religion that I know of, and I've read quite a bit about this. I could be wrong, but maybe there's new information. But upon the time of my deconstruction of Christianity, which was only about 6 years ago, there is not a religion known to man that has more blood on its hands than Christianity.
Yeah, it may be true.
Undeniably so.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
more
Yeah.
blood spent by the people claiming that they are Christians in the history of the world than there ever has been.
And that's-
And I think
for
it comes down to the difference between some sort of deeper experience and what it means.
And and what you're talking about, a guy who's been forced
Mm-hmm.
and someone who found it.
Yeah.
And they're different. Or maybe, you were forced as a kid, but now you've found it in a way that is real to you. And that, I think if you're not, and that goes all the way back to our original point about living your truth.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter even if it is objectively true or not. If you don't believe that shit, that's how you turn into a dictator and you hurt people and
The thing that happens to me, the thing that is relevant to that about me is that I think that if you are going to have that experience, you're going to know it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be mystical. It's not like Jared doesn't have any question about the third eye thing.
Mm-mm.
Like there's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No.
That's what you hear over and over again from people. It's like there's not a doubt. And I don't mean that as in like a one way to think it. It's actually a multiple thing. You're gonna feel it the way you feel it. Rock's gonna he's gonna feel it the way he feels it.
Yeah.
Same way with Jared. That's to me is that truth. That's that undeniable truth.
It's good.
Yeah, the personal side of it.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Well, this is good, man.
This was fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was like 2 hours, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're at like an hour and 54. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hell
we'll see.
yeah.
We'll see who listens to all of it.
We'll
Yeah.
see, maybe.
If you made it this far, you'll get a special treat. Just let us
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Special treat for all of us.
personal signed pictures of Nate here. So just,
We'll get you
just email me, Jared@newstory.com.
We'll get you
Hell
a
yeah.
signed T-shirt by Nate.
Yeah, that's
Dude,
right.
actually, please do that. That's so cool. If you, hey, guys, if you're watching, buy these. They're so dope.
Yeah.
They
right.
are.
All right, man.
Yeah.
It was great having you on.
Yeah, man.
That was
Thank you
awesome.
for having me.
Yeah,
This
for
was
sure.
so much fun.
This was cool. This was different, but it was good.
When's episode 3?
Yeah.
We're gonna
I'm
have
sure
to,
coming soon.
yeah, what are we gonna tackle there?
We're going to tackle something that's not 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's true.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you guys for cranking it out with the Nut Club.
That's right.
Use code NUTCLUB for 20% off all new Story products. Thank
That's right.
That's right.
you.